Thanks for joining in, and we got a bit delayed, but I guess that keeps happening with every tech thing. So today we have Dennis Mathew, who is going to be talking about how AI powered prototyping is changing the face of the game, wherein people are turning ideas into MVPs at a breakneck speed these days. So Dennis over here is CTO at Knowlens, and he brings with him around 26 years of tech experience, and now at the frontier of AI-powered prototyping, he's continuously helping startups to enterprises into figuring out the right MVP and bringing it for them so that one can learn faster, build better. So today we have. Thanks a lot for joining in, Dennis. And
Thank you.
please tell us a bit more about yourself.
Thanks, Romesh. It's an exciting journey. Super excited from Manushinath. It's an exciting journey. It's going to be interesting. Inviting comments from everyone because all of us are learning. This is uh, rapidly changing. I'm sure I'm outdated already by people who know more than me because they've been watching the news today than I haven't been. So yeah, so 26 years makes me sound quite old, which I don't feel. But having said that, yes, been in the industry for a while. I think I started off when we had BBC Micro, and I'm sure nobody here would have heard of this. That's how we started in school. Then there was the PC XT, which is the thing that we started with a 8088 processor, which is unthinkable today. I was the big one in the class because I had a 20 MB hard disk. So that was then, and that was early 90s. From then of course, then college and all the other stuff started worked here, worked for a few projects in the US and Indonesia, then started my startup journey. And I'm right now with Knowlens as the CTO here, and I am a consulting CTO with another company called Viosa. Very exciting times, very exciting developers that I'm working with and learning from actually, because as you said, this ageism factor also when you're 26, it's the 26-year-olds who teach me. So that's where I am.
That's great. So interesting thing is like when you're saying when how has your startup journey been like? So let's start from that.
So I used to run a platform called Bit Gifting a while back. This was way beyond. Paytm was a small competitor we had identified at that point, and this was a Visa-backed prepaid instrument that we were giving out. So let's say your birthday is coming up. I've come here for a friend's birthday. So let's say your birthday is coming up, and five people wanted to contribute uh, to the gift. Everyone would contribute as per their budget, 1,000, 2,000, and we would send the person a Visa debit card. And you may want to give him a watch, whether the person would want to buy or just fill petrol. So that was my startup journey, this product. But well, we didn't. It took us a long time, and we couldn't really capture the market, so it went down. So that was the first failure. It was a success and a failure, because failure, since you hear of Vijay Shekhar Sharma, not Dennis Mathew, and success because the learning that we had, the way we went about building things, that was great. And today I am here because of all the journey that I've had. And then we started with Knowlens, and where we do a lot of video-based learning, and a lot of the architecture which we had originally developed got reused here. And then this is where our product is. Of course, video was something I hadn't worked with. I learned, and streaming and making sure that everyone wants YouTube level quality. So how to get to that? And I think Jay, one of the earlier speakers was talking about how do you deliver at the edge, right? So
Right.
yeah, CDNs like Akamai. So you listen to these talks, you learn stuff from here and there, you put it together, and that's what your journey is about on a startup.
Absolutely, and somehow you need to be constantly having that hunger to figure out what is coming around, how to leverage what is out there, and which is also what we kind of put the title to today's talk is, right? Which is about using AI for prototyping, which you cannot
Yes.
do that much unless and until you are constantly hungry about grasping all that information at a real time pace and then using it right. So, because you have started using it so much, as I gather, how would you say that how is AI actually transforming the software prototyping in the recent times?
So I think it was the IDEO CEO, Danny Keller, I don't remember the name. He popularized this term fail fast, which has been used and misused a lot. Now, fail fast doesn't mean you go and fail. Fail fast means you try, you fail, you move on. You know, you get your
Learn
product
and then you
out.
move.
Yeah, you don't spend about a year trying and testing out new ideas. You quickly create your MVP, get it out to the stakeholders, let them play around. It'll either help you pivot, it'll help you iterate, or it'll just get junked. But you don't have to spend about 4, 6, 8, 10 months creating a prototype. Now, with all these AI tools which are available, there are things which could be just a weekend project, which can probably become an MVP, which can become a product altogether. And we've heard of cases. Everyone on all the influencers on the YouTube, that's what they sell. Earn your $10,000 side job using AI, and all that. But ultimately what they're saying is not wrong. You can't do it. You won't get you the 10,000 or the 100,000. But yes, you can actually try out your idea much quicker than what you could earlier, because as developers, like most developers, I'm very bad with UI. So my biggest help has been using AI to generate UI as, I mean, more beautiful than I could ever. So that's where I use it the most. But having said
Right.
that, for every aspect, generating code, throwaway code, trying out different ideas, just discussing with it like you're a partner, a co-pilot. So
Right.
that's where AI prototyping really shines. There's a fine difference of how far do you take it, and at what point do you either junk and move forward, or how do you make it production ready. So that's something maybe we can discuss over the discussion today. But
Right.
yeah, it gives you a way to get your idea out there much quicker than what you could do probably a year and a half, 2 years back.
Absolutely. And just to put a small bracket there, as in when we talk about the new age product engineers or product managers, so to speak, uh, everybody is talking about that go to lovable or things like that, and then quickly develop a UI as
Yeah.
a product manager before going to the tech lead of that project. So, what has your experience been around that?
I think it's a brilliant thing. I would ask my co-founders to sketch something on paper and give it to me, and then I would try and interpret. Half the time, they couldn't figure out what their scribbling was. So, if somebody takes that initiative and uses tools like Lovable and expresses their idea, gets a functional UI, it doesn't have to be. Or you use your sketch it out, and AI is much better than I am. You give it that pick and get a wireframe developed, or something which visually tells or can communicate what you're trying to tell the others. Use it. I think it's a brilliant thing to do. Everyone should must, I would say, adopt this. And all my non-tech founders, I'm like, please go ahead. Please go ahead, use this, everyone get a subscription, use it the way you want to, and give it to me the way I can understand, so that it's much easier and the time for me to interpret is less, and the
Right.
for it helps them express better. So that's where I say that use whatever tools available. Non-tech people also should be using this, and eh, tech, whether it's design or development tech, yeah, Figma with their AI enablement right now, use it.
Absolutely, and that way it starts. It makes the conversation so much more simpler. It propagates the idea so much more better. Wherein, when one person who has a vision is able to create something and then is able to then take the conversation forward with other stakeholders in a much more precise manner, I would rather say.
That's
And precision
that's
is what
true.
developers love.
Except the challenge there is you need to know what is it that you're trying to do. When maybe a person without a tech background creates because Lovable or any of these tools gives you so much freedom, you end up thinking that you may create an entire product out of it. While yes and no, you can create a product out of it, but there will be challenges. So then you need to know it's something which can be discarded, or it is just to go, it's a pitch deck. Because that's where, when actual software engineers or when LLM develops to that extent where all the security aspects, the performance aspects are taken care of. So you need to be very clear on what you're trying to achieve. Are you just trying to create a good UI and give it to somebody? Are you trying to create a complete product? So then your approach and your guidance to AI has to be as such.
Right. So in a way, we are kind of defining a lot more depth, I guess, with these statements about AI prototyping or AI powered prototyping, rather. So would you like to elaborate on that a bit more? Let's kind
Sorry, I
of
didn't get the first part of it. We are trying to.
the way we are talking about it, it is like we are defining AI powered prototyping a lot better in terms of what is it supposed to do, what isn't it supposed to do.
Yeah. So
So
I think we should. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. So please go
Yeah.
please.
So let's first and foremost, the catchword here is prototyping. So it is AI powered prototyping. It is not an AI powered product, or it's not a product that you are developing. So it is a prototype. A prototype is something where you're just it's the initial stage. A prototype of a car or a prototype of the initial stage where you're getting it out to get feedback. It could be just feedback on the UI, it could be feedback on a button, it could be a feedback on the functionality, but it is a prototype to get it out there and for people to comment on it, or for other stakeholders to be able to. Stakeholder could be a customer, or it could be an internal team, or it could be just your manager, or it could be somebody who's reporting into you because you're trying to communicate an idea. So stakeholder could be just about anyone. A prototype is getting that basic functionality out there so that people can start working, can start looking and give you feedback.
Absolutely. Um, So we also, like you also mentioned a little bit about generating a prototype over the course of a weekend nowadays, right?
Yes.
So do you think that a weekend code can be a foundation for a production level application?
Well, it depends on which weekend it is and how much you had to drink that weekend. But having said
That's
that,
fair. That's fair.
so weekend can actually be, uh, it can definitely become a product. But so weekend code, I would say, is something which you're just ideating and you're again creating something which is visual and functional for you to take forward. Can it become a production code? Eventually, yes. Long as you have the guardrails in place. Guardrails, when I talk about guardrails, I'm talking about security, I'm talking about performance, I'm talking about engineering standards. Now, as a person who may not have a background of, let's say, design pattern, uh, uh, may not necessarily create a great product which performs or which scales.
Right.
Tomorrow LLMs may be able to infer that and they may have all those checks. Today it doesn't. So whatever input you give, and somebody was asking about prompt engineering, and yeah, Mehak and Bhavya
Yeah.
will come to that
Right. Right. We
also.
will come to that. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So so it all depends on the kind of prompt you give, because unless you are very explicit, it it will generate code for you, it will generate something for you. Is that something what you really wanted? Is that something which is uh, functional? Is that something which is scalable? Probably not, probably yes. So
Right.
the weekend code is a starting point, and then you go on to the next step.
Absolutely. And I kind of related to those things like weekend hackathons, wherein a lot of, or rather, I'd say startup weekend, so to speak, wherein a lot of a bunch of folks, both techies and non techies, would get together, ideate over a product, build it on a weekend, thanks
Yeah,
to AI driven prototyping. I mean, in those things also, what you are at the end of the day doing is prototyping, and uh, some of them actually become a startup,
yeah,
and which may or may not grow. That's a second question, but they become a startup. That means the prototyping has done its job. So if it can be done by humans coding over a night, and then be taken to production code, I believe everything can be done using AI in that case. So that's just
absolutely.
right. That's my take on it. So now first, let's before we move on, let's answer a few questions. Uh, so let's start with Bhavya. Like Bhavya and Mehak, they both are asking a similar thing. That is prompt engineering the new programming language, or I would rather put it like this: that is natural language the new programming language. Like a lot of industry leaders are also claiming that that's the direction we are moving in.
I wouldn't go far as to say that it's the new programming language, but it seems to be, and getting it right. Well, the iterative way that you go in for prompting or prompt engineering is very different from how you would do it on a structured programming language, right? But I guess the question is slightly different, where you're asking, should we learn JavaScript and Python, or should we spend time more on learning prompt engineering?
Right.
So right now you're at the cusp of maybe prompt engineering being able to do everything. I think it is uh, Andre Karpathy who brought about the term of vibe
Right.
coding. So yeah, and he says I don't write a single line of code any longer. Well, I'm sure it's
It's more of a, like it's too much generalization rather than being actually over there. Uh,
that's true.
and
That's true. So it's
yeah, yeah, please.
Yeah, so it's really not a new programming language, but I would say it's something that you definitely need to know, and it will augment your programming skills. At least in the next 4 to 6 months, I don't see you being able to stay away from knowing programming languages, especially as a developer, because there will be people who will create product, and when something doesn't work, you may not be, and LLM hallucinations still happen. And well, with 3.7 Claude, it's much lesser than earlier. Even 3.5 was quite good, but there will be times when it gets stuck in a loop, and I faced that many times even now. And then once it gets stuck in a loop, you just don't know how to fix it. So at that point of time, any number of prompts will doesn't help. At least in my experience, the prompts that I tried out didn't help to fix that solution. So that's when you have to get into the code, and then you're like, okay, oh, so this is what's happening, and then you have to fix it. uh, Year and a half down the line, I really have no idea how things are changing. I mean, you know how things are changing. So year and a half down the line, maybe it's just about improving your English or using an LLM to improve your expression. Uh, Not necessarily English; it could be any language.
Right.
But right now, it's trained in English, so I'm using English as as the term for prompting.
Absolutely.
So maybe in a year and a half, that's where it's headed.
Absolutely. I kind of concur there. And I'd also like to add another angle to these set of questions. Basically, I believe there is something called prompt engineering, and there is another
Yeah,
skill called prompting, and they
yeah,
both are very different. While you are going in the realm of prompt engineering with the idea that you are creating a repeatable workflow for a variety of code applications. However, however, for prompting, it is more about an idea on how to talk to a particular LLM. And I would say particular LLM because every LLM is trained different. So they have a different space they are operating in. So,
yeah.
so one should be learning both prompting as well as prompt engineering on top of Python, JavaScript, or whatever language you like. Because at the end of the day, you are going to come back to the code. It is not going to go away anytime soon, so to speak.
That's true. That's true. That's what I would say also, because you cannot not learn a language, and it, again, as I said, in about 2 years you don't know, or in a year and a half you don't know where we are going.
Exactly.
But definitely, I have that visibility into the next year and a half. You still need to know programming.
Totally, totally. Um, so, so couple of things. So let's take another set of questions. Like, can you talk a little on the ethical standards in AI and how can you exploit AI tools?
That sounds from someone who is
Who came prepared
non-tech.
with your profile and is talking about the video pipeline and impact.
Yeah.
So,
So,
let's do a quick
so
touch
yeah.
up over there and then let's move on.
So yeah. Ethical standard, finally, yes, people are now being conscious. Earlier, when training was happening, no one gave two hoots about ethics. You're like, get as much data as possible and lead the way. And now that they are at top of things is when now people have started, again, like the West, you went and polluted all over, and now you want to have carbon emission norms and impose it on the third world. So
That's what is
and
happening in
also
the data
AI
economy.
has,
That is what is happening.
I'm
That
sorry.
is what is happening in the data and AI economy, so to speak.
Exactly, exactly. And AI has democratized a lot of things. So use and misuse will happen. But having said that, you need to know what is it that you're doing. If you let's look at the licensing, how that works. People will release their code as MIT, people release their code as GPL, LGPL, and so on. Why? So the MIT guys, they're like, use it as you see fit.
Right.
GPL guys, use it, but make it available to everyone else. So that's their standards. Now they have said, okay, this is my code, this is how I want to do it. So I think everyone has to have that uh, your own sense of what is ethical, and follow that. As an industry, yes, people are using, the Ghibli art. which became popular as well as unpopular recently. I I personally feel, while I've had many debates and people don't agree to it, I like it, for training a model with permission, it would have been a great thing. Now, if you're going to create in that style and not attribute it to the founder, then it really does not make sense.
Right.
Then that is unethical. But give credit where it's due, but use with proper attribution is what I would say in terms of ethics. I think that was Manushi Nath who had asked initially before this came off. So that's how what I would say ethics, how I look at ethics when you're using this. You see, these models were in there, we would not be having this discussion and we wouldn't have had these prototypes. So there are these pros and cons to both.
Right.
If they had not trained on all the data available, uh,
And
my mom would not have asked me what is chat gpt. It became so popular, right?
absolutely. So, coming to the question around how AI is essentially, helping people build MVPs, what are the differences you observe with respect to how startups approach the problem versus enterprises approach the problem?
So let's have a clear differentiation here. When you talk of enterprises, we are talking about big companies who have a lot of processes and guidelines already in
Right,
place. So there you can't most of the time come in and disrupt and changing everything. Whatever you're doing, you will have to be within the guidelines, within the standards, and there will be more red tapeism. So there, a prototype or an AI prototype would mean, okay, convincing your manager this can be done much faster, or taking up smaller challenges like, okay, you're reporting, you want to see this report here, let me give you this tool which I've created over the weekend, see if it makes sense. Then they would actually take it and build over it. They may not use the same code as it is. I mean,
right,
one case being something which I was aware of is I'm aware of fintech. They made an entire Q&A chatbot for internal use. It was about to go into production, and they realized that, okay, what about PII? Is there anything?
right.
PII, for people who don't know, is personally identifiable
Information.
information. There was no standards because nobody guided it or nobody thought of, internally you all know that yes, this has to be done, but didn't follow the standards. Now in an enterprise code, that is something which would be needed. You need to keep within all these stringent guidelines. Whereas in a startup, you are cleaning the office and also writing code and making your coffee. So there it doesn't make a difference. You will just get this up, you will face the problem. Okay, yeah, it's crashing when 10 users are accessing it. Then you will iterate, okay, why is this happening? And you will, okay, let me make the code better. You will probably go back to the database and so on, and you will ask the LLM, this is what's happening now, help me fix it. You will make that change. Now, okay, instead of 10, 20 people can use it. And then you slowly learn, and you have a lot more bandwidth to experiment and play when you're a startup versus when you are an enterprise. So enterprise, within the given uh, constraints, you can create much smaller POCs or proof of concepts.
Right.
In startups, your POC itself could be your startup.
Exactly.
That's where
Yeah,
the
that's
differences are.
the one liner I would say everybody can be abiding by in a certain sense. Because at the end of the day, I mean, like you said, it cannot be said any better than that. That your POC or your MVP is your startup. You build it, let it break tomorrow, and then build again. So,
Yeah.
So, because we have been talking about building these MVPs at a alarming rate, So, what are the best practices that you would say for doing or building such MVPs?
So I think you need to learn a little more about what are the pitfalls, and then get your tooling system right, get to know how prompting should work, how prompting would work, or how prompting works. Write down all your prompts which are giving you the best results. Keep a note of them so that it can be reused. Uh, but give, when you're prompting, give proper, precise prompts. This is not something which, well, it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. But again, if you're looking at production code, the cycle does not change. You need to, maybe you would use an LLM, iterate with an LLM like you would ideate with a co-founder. I think you would go into talking to it and asking it, finally give it certain ideas. It could be gibberish initially, help you refine that, and ultimately come to a PRD. Now in software engineering, you would create a PRD, and go through the entire SDLC, which is your software development life cycle. I don't think it is going away anywhere soon, especially when you're looking at production code. So have your try and get as precise as you can when it comes to the code, when it comes to the prompt. Give it proper context, figure out the right tools. Somebody could be just using the Claude chat interface to generate code, but somebody could be using something like Cursor or Windsurf or one of these tools. Now these tools help better because it can retain context across your project. Otherwise it's a pain. I've done both, and I using just the Claude interface, after a few this thing, you have to go into a new chat. Chat GPT now with a million tokens says, yes, I will remember everything, but I'll show you my this thing. It says out of memory. So, so clear up earlier memory because memory
Right,
full,
right,
or
right.
something
Like
like
out of
that.
memory
I
is what
keep getting. So
your memory is full.
yeah,
Maybe. Yes.
so yeah, good to figure this out, and getting your right to chain in place is where understanding the SD helps. Architecture models, your design patterns help. Maybe not necessarily for a prototype to production. You need to patterns.
Right.
Does
And
that address
also kind
the?
of, and not
Hmm.
just, yeah, yeah, it does. I would also add, when we talk about following SDLC to take prototype to production, um, one should also kind of stay tuned to things like TDD, because
Mhm.
otherwise, in face of LLM, things start going wrong much faster, and without you even realizing where it has gone wrong. And then you go back and see, oh, the entire architecture was flawed at some point earlier, and now it
Yeah,
just
that's
cannot.
that's very good that you brought that up. And in fact, I missed that. Of late, that I've been preaching uh, about this TDD, as Romesh just mentioned, is test-driven development. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about,
Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah,
Romesh?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there are people, and there are the actual engineers I know who actually do uh, test. They write their test cases first and then develop. I come from the bad school where I don't write test cases. Then I face problems. Then I write my test cases. Then I create. Then I spend my entire time on creating the testing framework. And now there's nothing other than testing. Unless all the unit tests pass, I will not do anything further. But I've seen people have achieved, and they've spending that initial time writing the test case and then writing your code has immense benefit. Again, it comes back to the same thing. Do we need that in the age of LLM? As of today, yes, you do. uh, you may get the product out, but if it's not testable, it will not scale.
It will not.
But again, just a quick prototype, you don't need to do all this. But if you get that as a practice, or if you get the LLM to create those test cases, and then a manual review, that's again another thing which is needed as part of your process. uh, you don't know the code that it's generating. It may create a 10,000 line code for a small function, which could have been done with a small function. Probably that's an exaggeration, but yeah, it could have been much smaller than that. So, or there may be other libraries which are available which it didn't use because it wasn't part of the training data, or it does not have current visibility into something which was recently released. So, uh, writing your test cases, also manual review, or use a maker checker model of you have one LLM doing the code, another LLM doing your code review. Uh,
Right.
Unless there is a human review which is happening, which I still encourage, but have that maker checker model in place.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, every code is supposed to be reviewed, even if
Yes.
AI is reviewing it. So,
True.
so
It
how
depends on what
you?
which AI is doing.
Sorry. So your
I
voice
said use
is cracking.
two different models, the same model
Right.
also. So at least that's what it would be.
So, so Dennis, like, I'm pretty sure your team is also using a lot of these AI tools, right? So,
Yeah.
what approaches would you or structured processes would you recommend that people should be using while like following while using these AI tools?
I think just be smart about it. Ideally, what I would love is, yes, let's say we start with the design. You have you use AI in Figma, create your design, then you give it to a review team, then you give it to a development team. They use whatever tools are available, then and so on. That will be the nice and ideal process. But then we are going into an enterprise scale. That's not a startup. So what what I tell my team is you have an idea, you have a thought in mind, create a quick prototype, use whatever tool, and we'll buy subscription for everything, right? From Lovable to, if you want to use Windsurf or Cursor, we'll do that. I hope none of the devs are here right now, but I said we will use everything that is available to you, create something, and then let's review it. So everyone should have the freedom of being able to create, but as a team, review what it has been created. Don't give up your sprint cycles, because you could generate that overnight. Keep a smaller sprint cycle, keep a 1 day or a 2 day sprint cycle, where okay, we will develop this feature, but let's review it together.
Right.
And so as a team, if you're working on a team, if it's a single freelancer and so on, make that your practice, that okay, code is generated, you spend hours to review that code, but go over it, eyeball it, and then just do a step by step through the code, and then let it go out. In my team, the person who does the design, they use AI there. It could be just a sketch, it could be one of the co-founders giving us the idea or a wireframe. Okay, so just sketch it out, and I'll just give it to GPT 4.0 and say, okay, create a wireframe out of this. So, or now I encourage him to do it uh, on his own. So then you're like, oh wow, even I can do it. It's a win for everyone. So every
Absolutely.
person in the team should be enabled to use or leverage to enhance their strength or augment what their strength is.
Right. And it also comes with I would say, a little bit
So
of
designer
responsibility.
uses AI in Figma, developer uses, or the founder or the marketing people use paper and pen, use GPT 4.0 or any of the other vision tools. Make it, I'll give you an example. Now, we are at Knowlens, we make film-based learning system. So we have an LMS, and we create real-life films using actor, uh, and we write a script, full script. There's a production team which shoots the thing. Then we have expert analysis, and so on. It's a long process on our platform. We were working on a on where all can we shorten this process. So I just created again, somebody was asking, it was a weekend code, and I'll just can you share things here? Can I share
So,
a screen here?
yeah, yeah, sure.
Romesh, are you there?
Yeah, 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 I am there. Hello, am I audible?
Hello, there's a lag. Is it at my end or at your end?
Can't say. So, Dennis, if you want to share your screen, please go ahead. Hello.
Uh, it seems to be some connectivity issue. Is it? I'm not sure if it is at my end or Romesh at your end.
Um,
Yeah, I can hear you now.
okay, great. So I guess that might be a little bit of connectivity issue. So Dennis, yeah, carry on, please. You said
Yeah.
you
So
were
what I
about.
was talking about was, yeah. So this is a quick prototype that we did over the weekend to generate a script. Now here, what this does is, and I don't know if it is up right now. I think there is some connectivity issue.
So never mind.
Okay, seems like there's some connectivity issue at my end also. I'm not able to connect to the server. But the idea was we created a simple script generator. What it does is it takes a basic topic, it takes a description, and it generates an entire script. Now, what we did was we spent time fine tuning, we spent time uh, figuring out the right prompts. And instead of initially, our idea was to fine tune an LLM and to generate this for us. But finally, we came after a little bit of ideation and so on. The right approach to it was to use fine tune a prompt rather than fine tune an entire LLM, and that really brings it down to an agentic framework, which we can also address. But simple agents which does the scripting, which does the review, which does the script generation, and that was done over a weekend. Having seen this POC, the other people who write the script got in together and they have come up with much better prompts, which now I will incorporate, and this will become an internal product.
Right. So, so let's take a few questions now from the users. Just a sec. So basically, I'll at this point I'll bring a question from Aditya. Basically, he's saying that with frameworks changing so fast and AI is filling the gaps, is it more important to learn principles or tools today? I mean,
I think you have, okay, I may have to qualify that a little. What does principles of tool mean by
no principles or tools or
principles? Okay, I think you need to know both. AI is changing fast, but we don't know how good it will become absolutely brilliant. It
and
may
like
happen. It may happen in 6 months. It may happen in 3 years. Uh, but whatever it's building, you need to know whether it's right or wrong, at least to prompt it better. So I think you need to know principles. Definitely, you need to know the tools, but you need to know the principles, design principles, architecture patterns. These are things. If you know, you'll become a better developer or a senior developer, and tomorrow you'll be an architect. But how do you know if the architecture that the LLM has created, if it is good enough? It can't be that users cannot be your testers. That okay, let's put it out there and see if it works.
absolutely
It may work for some, but in my opinion, it's not the right way.
and another thing that I've often seen is like if you would go to LLM and kind of ask it separately, you want to do XYZ thing, what is the best architecture pattern that you should be going about it? It'll choose one architecture pattern and kind of give you an exam,
Yeah.
a reasoning behind it. However, if you'll just go to a code editor and just ask it to build something, it will just do it in the simplest way possible because it is also kind of optimizing the tokens for itself, so to speak. So
Yes.
you are supposed to know your principles a lot more, a lot better, so that once the code is generated or your objective is achieved, you go ahead and you start picking it in pieces, and then using the principles that you know, again iterate on top of it. So
Yeah,
knowing
there was a
tools is
gist.
important than as knowing principles.
Yes, and principles, you don't need to know every pattern which is out there. There are scenarios where you would use a singleton. There may be some places where you would use an abstract factory pattern, but you don't need to know at this point which one is to be used where and so on. Long as you know that there are these patterns, you go to the gist, get these patterns, give that as part of your system input, tell it to use, give it the full context. As I said, be explicit and be give full context. So long as you give it the full context and you're explicit, please pick the correct patterns from the, let's say, gang of four, which for each component, whatever is the right pattern to be used, use that. So long as you get your prompting correct and you have these system rules in place, you may also put as a part of your rules, ensure that it meets all the code generated is OWASP 20 compliant, and or any standard. It could be PCI DSS compliant for probably a fintech firm. Long as you have these rules and guidance in place, uh, your tools will give you a decent output. But for you to know what the guidance are and where to find that, and these guidance make sense, or these rules have to be input, you need to know what the overall,
What the
in the
overall.
overall scheme of things.
Absolutely. So also Russell over here is talking about that he recently read that engineering, prompt engineering might see a redundancy in light of progress of AI. So, and he's questioning that how to convey, in a certain sense, how to convey use cases better in form of natural language expression, right? So, how to convey your use, like which you're saying that your prompting should be better. And now, if you also put in this fact that I have often seen people that they would write a small set of requirements, like give it to things like ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever, and then ask it to generate a bigger prompt.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts around all of this? I would say,
Yeah. So today, LLMs understand prompts, and the way you would do it, and as many people have been talking about it, using markup and giving the prompts seems to give better results for what you want to emphasize, because it seems to understand markup better. I could be wrong here, but that's my experience. Also been, yes, if I give it a markup with my instruction, I get better output. But use an LLM with whatever your thoughts are and ask it to give you the right prompt is the first way of prompting it. Because we have random thoughts. If you tell it to give it back in a language it understands, I'm sure it'll do a better job than what you could have figured. So, and it'll give you much more exhaustive uh, prompt where it may cover scenarios which you had not thought of. So once it's given that output, you have a structure, then look at it if it is what you wanted to say. You have to review that and see if that's what it wanted to say, and then use that prompt and give it back. So it creates a uh, structure. Now, if you're building a product, again, follow the same thing. Tell it to first create a PRD, tell it to create a to do, and keep that in context. Dude, this is what we are trying to do. Don't move away, because it can, it's very whimsical. It
it can
can
go
go and do what
anywhere.
it wants at.
Exactly.
And as Russell rightly asked, uh, is it relevant, or it may not be relevant in some time. Today it is relevant, and I don't see the relevance going away soon.
Right. I totally agree there. I mean, because at the end of the day, like I said, the way I see prompt engineering is coding a specific process by way of prompts for indeterminate inputs, and then letting it run out in the wild. So, for that, uh, understanding your natural language expression is always going to be there. Uh, another thing, like a LinkedIn user was commenting, was that API calling is based on agents is okay, but programming will never go away because the results you get by running a function will be much faster. So I guess this is also an important aspect that one has to always keep in mind when they are thinking about, I guess, coding with AI or building production code with AI or learning to code like an earlier person asked.
So this is right. You're right. But how many functions are you going to sit and write? What an agentic framework does is, or let's say an MCP. I'm talking about a model context protocol. Ultimately, somebody's written that function. You're just using agents to figure out which one is the right one to pick
Ex-
up. I was the other day I was looking at this MCP for Blender. Now, I used to run a startup called Alive, which was a music metaverse, and there was so it had Unity engine, which is a gaming engine for people who are not aware, and we created a metaverse there with a Web3 NFT minting and all that jazz when uh, crypto was the big thing. So it's still a big thing, but probably not as much of a buzzword as it was 3 years back. So at that point, for us, it took us just to create a single world. It would take us about uh, 10-15 days. I just saw this Blender MCP the other day and I set it up. And which was taking about 3-4 weeks, and great Unity developers and designers there, it's doing something not as good, but something similar in less than a few hours with the tweaking needed. Again, the tweaking, the person was needed to tweak it right, but me, without being a designer or a world designer, I could create something just by sitting in front of my computer. That just being an example. If somebody were to have written that function, yes, it would have been faster, even less than that 3 hours. But when I was doing it, it was taking much longer. So
Right,
once you've written the function, it'll be faster. But to get all these things together and getting your product out there, this probably is the right approach.
right. So I guess it's coming close to an hour for us. So before we start wrapping up, what advice would you give to mid-level engineers, who want to thrive with AI-driven development? Because it is still a new thing. It is still a new thing to a lot of people, in my opinion, when we are talking about AI-driven coding. It is so. What are your thoughts or advice rather?
I think the AI AI is probably is just an enabler, right? It's a sous chef. You still have to
Right.
taste the soup. So I, I would suggest use AI to complement what you do. It's not replacing anyone right now. It may just replace a task, maybe what urgently a junior dev would do. And I'm talking about years back. Now, junior devs also, there's a very clear distinction what a junior dev used to do 5-8 years back versus what they do today. So, I mean, a junior dev, when you say that, you're talking about somebody with about 6 months to 1 year experience. And in certain AI scenarios, she or he knows more than I do. So, so you can't call them junior any longer. But when I say junior, I'm referring to probably 6 months to 1 year experience. And I'm talking mid level would be about 3 to 5 years experience. Earlier, it was 10 years was mid left. But my, okay, I'm digressing. The point is use AI as a companion, and know your basics. You can't do away with your data structure. You can't do away with your pattern architecture. That reading has to happen. Use AI to learn that also.
Right.
But I don't see that being replaced at this point of time completely.
Totally. So, so what trends would you say that AI-powered prototyping would be going to see in next 1 to 2 years?
Again, as I said, 2 years is a very long term when it comes to AI. I have no idea, but I think a lot of multi-model based prototyping is something which I see happening in the next. It's all happening right now, but it'll be much more efficient in the next probably 6 to 8 months, with better processing. I was just watching this engineer yesterday who's created this small chip with a neural network, which wearables are going to be using it. I think somewhere I saw this yesterday or day before. An Indian engineer. Now, for actual prototyping of real life hardware and software or IoT devices, a lot more of AI is going to be visible. So that's something that we could look at. So 6 months, 1 year with autonomous cars and so on, which is becoming, so there are more use cases coming up with all these self-driven cars. So that's something which could come up. It could be now with the current atmosphere, maybe software for drones and doing that in sync. So, so learning, figuring out use cases is what you should be looking at. Where it's headed, AI is headed. It's there everywhere. So right from health, healthcare is another place where I think AI will play a very big role. So that's something where people could look at.
Great, great. Um, so, before closing the things, the conversation today, what is the core message that you would leave for the developers? Because we have a lot of developers from
No, I like that effect, but I would say fail fast. So, hello, I think Romesh has lost the connection, but are we still online? I have no idea. But if you're listening, my advice is fail fast. Try out, get out your product, get your POC out there. It takes a day or two now, but just remember it is a POC. And I'm
Yeah, sorry about that. The light, the electricity went out. So some network connections, connection issues.
So are we still streaming or are we
Yeah, yeah, we are still
not?
streaming. So at this
So my
point, I guess,
closing thing was fail fast. So and use AI to get your product out there, try it out, and get feedback as early as possible.
right. And thanks, Russell, for sending me to the dark side. So, so So thanks a lot for this these many insights, Dennis, into how to really build and think about AI prototyping. And we are really grateful to have you here on our platform. So thanks again for that.
Thanks so much, and thanks everyone who joined in. And maybe if people are interested, Romesh, we could do a live coding and building a prototype at some point of time. Where we just use some tools and let people put up certain ideas, let people put in the prompts, and let's build an MVP or a product online. And if it does become a product, then everyone who's contributed becomes a co-founder.
So I really like this idea. It's almost like community driven development,
Yeah,
wherein we pull in all the prompts from everybody on the. I mean, that's a great idea. We'll think about it, and thanks a lot for that.
absolutely. It was a pleasure being here. Thanks so much, Romesh, Ashish, and team.
Same here, and it was a pleasure talking to you, Dennis. And so, at this point, thanks a lot to everybody for tuning in today with Dev Bytes. Uh, Stay updated, stay informed, and like us for more such content. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.